Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we share stories from the Philippines, Thailand and all of Southeast Asia, so if you've got a story or experience, use email and I'll get it read out for you. Okay, this story is pretty short, but it's a success story. So it's about a guy and a Thai girl, and it's not the common lose everything story. So yeah, let's jump into it. First, here's some info. I got married and came to the US from Turkey in 2003. But things didn't go well in the marriage. We split up and got divorced in 2010. I had to start everything over again. My family was far away and I had to get through this phase all by myself. After that, I was mostly alone. I stayed in the divorce state for a long time. But deep down, I always believed that even though it might take a while, love would find me eventually, and when it did, it would be really wonderful. A simple thing changed everything for me. Thailand. Thailand helped me find my energy and happiness again, almost like magic. I noticed something interesting. Many of my friends who went to Thailand found meaningful relationships, but some had really tough times with relationships, so it was like a hit or miss for me. In 2015, when I arrived in Bangkok for the first time, I did all the typical tourist things during the first week. I visited temples, tried various Thai dishes, and even checked out some of the nightlife, even though it wasn't really my scene. About a week later, I decided to give online dating a try. I came across the profile of a lovely Thai woman who was 7 years younger than me. She seemed really impressive. Her profile mentioned she had a professional job, no children, and had just ended a long-term relationship, something we shared. Her name was Anne. One day, as I was looking through the dating app, I got a surprise. Anne sent me a message with just a simple hello. After that, we started talking for hours every day, getting to know each other. It felt like we really clicked and had a strong connection. Let's skip ahead to a Saturday night. I was out with friends having a few drinks. Suddenly my phone buzzed and I saw a message from Anne. Curious and wanting to chat, I responded in a friendly way. She mentioned that she'd like to meet up sometime, so we started planning a date, but it was just as friends. There was no flirting involved. In our later talks, I mentioned that I was all by myself in this country and that my family wasn't close by. When she heard this, she told me, "You're not alone, remember I'm here for you if you ever need anything." I thought her words were kind, but I'm pretty cautious and not easily fooled. I didn't want to be naive, especially since I've heard stories about foreigners getting into trouble with the wrong people in Thailand. However, in that instant, I realised my heart had been craving affection. The idea that someone genuinely cared about me touched a deeply sensitive spot I hadn't even recognised before. I hadn't given her much thought until then, yet gradually I began to see that she was unique in some way. Our conversation brought us closer and I found myself enjoying them more and more. From that point on, we started having regular phone calls. Our talks were meaningful and lovely. Although they were officially just friendly chats, we made plans to meet in person a week later at a restaurant in Bangkok. During those years of stress, I found comfort in eating, and I noticed I'd gained some weight recently. This made me a bit self-conscious. Finally, the night arrived for our first date. I cleaned up and tried to look my best. I hopped into a taxi and headed to the restaurant where we had planned to meet. She was already at the entrance waiting for me. I recognised her from her photos, and seeing her in person was even better. I couldn't believe how lucky I was. Being with her in person was quite different from looking at her in a photo. I became acutely aware of how attractive she really was. She was a genuinely beautiful Thai woman, and here I was, just a regular guy from Turkey. Even though I noticed that, my thoughts weren't all aligned yet. I kept my usual laid-back attitude and stayed relaxed. One of the first things that stood out about her was how caring she was, and she was already focused on my comfort. She was really sharp, attractive and clever, basically everything I could hope for in a woman. Dinner was really enjoyable. We stayed there for hours. When it was time for coffee, we moved to another place and spent hours there as well. The conversation kept flowing smoothly. I was still keeping my feelings at bay and staying on the surface, mostly just admiring her since she was so good looking. We said our goodbyes and went our separate ways that night. I had some work and personal matters to handle which kept me busy. That's why it took us a little more than 2 weeks to meet again. On our second date, we went to a restaurant with a view of the water and a big temple on the other side. I can't recall the name, but it felt quite upscale, at least by my standards. Our relationship moved forward quickly, without any doubts or hesitations. We both felt the same excitement and ended up in a loving, serious relationship right away. We spent all our free time together, and it was easy because we had a lot in common and enjoyed each other's company. Weekends were spent visiting each other, taking turns to travel. Since I can work from anywhere, what was initially a 1-month trip to Bangkok extended to 2 months, and later it became 3 months after I went to Malaysia for a visa run. Sadly, things weren't going well in the other part of Thailand, in Isan. Her mother's already weak health was getting worse very quickly. I have to admit, I heard all those horror stories about girls eventually asking for money because of family emergencies or something in their village. I thought that this was going to be the next topic of conversation. Interestingly, her mother had a history of being selective about Anne's boyfriends. Even though she hadn't met me in person, Anne had talked to her about me over the phone. Surprisingly, her mother liked the idea of me and even suggested that Anne should marry me. Anne had already planned a trip to Isan to visit her mother before she met me, so she went as scheduled. Her mother had diabetes and required ongoing care. Anne's father had passed away some years ago, so both Anne and her brother took care of her. They made sure she received proper attention. It seemed like Anne's brother took on the role of taking care of their mother, while Anne was the one working in Bangkok to support the family financially. Anne was upfront about something. Despite the challenges with her mother back home, she made it clear that she would never ask me for money and that she wasn't in the relationship for financial reasons. I suggested to Anne that we should bring her mother to Bangkok, that way we could look after her. When you love your partner, it's only natural to want to take care of their family too. Sadly, it didn't work out. She couldn't come to Bangkok. One morning, Anne called me with the news that her mother had been taken to hospital. Unfortunately, she passed away shortly after that. Anne had to return to Isan to handle everything and make arrangements for the funeral. While all this was unfolding, I made the choice to return to the United States. Staying in Bangkok without Anne felt uncomfortable, and I thought attending the funeral might be a bit intrusive. During the 2 weeks I was in the United States, Anne and I stayed in touch as usual. I want to emphasize that Anne never asked me for money at any point. During those 2 weeks apart, I realized that Anne was the woman I had always dreamed of. I was truly in love, so I made up my mind to marry her. I planned to use the ring my mother had given me before she passed away. I returned to Bangkok, and 1 year after we met, I took Anne to the same restaurant where we had our first date. I knelt down on one knee, like a true gentleman, and asked her to marry me. I felt a bit silly in front of everyone, but as soon as she said yes, the whole place erupted in cheers and applause, which made me feel much more at ease. We had to make some changes for our new life together. Anne and I decided to give up her apartment and move into my spacious condo, which was a good fit for both of us. Before our official wedding, me and Anne had a very intimate and private wedding ceremony. For our official marriage, we had a small ceremony in her hometown with only a few of her family and friends, along with 2 of my friends. It turned out just the way we wanted, simple but beautiful. Personally, I'm still finding it hard to believe that I'm married. Feels like a dream, so unreal. Life has brought me so much pain and sadness in the past that it's really difficult to grasp that the same life has now brought me so much happiness and joy. Anne is truly invaluable. She's incredibly genuine and caring. She always takes care of me before making any decisions, no matter how minor they are. I had a clear stance on parenthood. Because of my childhood experiences, I made up my mind not to have any kids, and I also didn't want my wife to have any children from previous relationships. It was mainly about not wanting to share our connection with anyone else. Given these beliefs, I thought it wouldn't be fair to any child involved in our lives. Being straightforward with oneself is crucial. This wasn't a conventional viewpoint, but it was mine, and I felt strongly about it. Anne also had never been married before and didn't have any children. Love has a knack for changing your beliefs though, even the ones you clung on to for a long time. The love we had for each other shifted our perspective. It was the first time we considered the possibility of having children. I started to want a little baby girl. However, life doesn't always go according to plan, and unfortunately we couldn't have a child. Now we're moving forward as a small family of 3, the 2 of us and our new cat. Our bond is incredibly strong. I'll start a sentence and she'll complete it. We're highly attuned to each other, and it often feels like we can anticipate each other's thoughts. If I go to make coffee, she's already in the kitchen doing the same. Our connection is open and our communication flows smoothly because we're completely honest with one another. There isn't a single thing we can't share with each other. Our relationship relies on the openness and honesty. Without it, our connection wouldn't exist. Communication is the foundation we've built upon and preserves the authenticity of our relationship. However, I don't suggest that having these discussions is easy. They are essential and we have them. It was a journey we had to go through and we emerged from that phase in harmony. We don't harm each other and kindness is our approach. I found that relationships formed early on in life are quite delicate. When you experience love a bit later in life, you truly value its significance much more. Being in love is truly delightful, where every moment brings endless happiness. It's a feeling that's worth the patience and worth the effort to sustain it. Like any other couple, we have our tough days. In my opinion, it's crucial to address problems as they come up and have open conversations about them. Well, thanks for listening to my story. Me and Anne have been happily married for the last 7 years and hopefully many more to come. Just thought I'd share my story as it's a change from the millions of horror stories you hear from Thai and foreigner relationships. Thank you. What a nice success story that is. What do you guys think? I always like to hear some stories that are successful, because even though they're very rare, they do happen, and you can meet nice people in parts of the world. I think a lot of guys that go to Thailand looking for love and they find it in the wrong places, such as bars. But yeah guys, let me know what you think, and if you got a story, send me an email and I'll get it read out for you. Until next time guys, I'll see you then.